Good afternoon, everyone. It's Kristen, just as planned. We are the podcast for brides and grooms planning their weddings, and we are rolling right into 2022, one of the busiest wedding times of the year. And I'm so excited to have my colleague and friend, Debbi, here from Dare to Declare. Debbi, where are you joining me from today?
I'm in Ontario, Canada.
Oh, I bet it's a little bit chillier there than it is here in Florida.
I was checking up the temperature because I'm hoping to be with you in a little bit. But yes, it's a mild winter, but it's definitely colder than where you are.
Oh, I can't wait for you to be here. I promise you that we will not have snow.
Awesome.
So it's so great. I know you and I have worked together, I think just about probably over a year now. And we came together because I wanted to know more about vision boards for brides and grooms. And so I'm going to let you share with everyone all about Dare to Declare and how it's very much life changing, which I personally can attest to, and how we incorporate it into wedding planning. So I'm going to let you take the wheel for a little bit and then we can jump back in together.
Okay. So my background is actually in early years. So I was in childcare for 32 years, and I felt that the employees that I was working with were really discouraged in terms of personal development. They wanted the government was giving was professional development, but they were really challenged with some of the personal development. So I started my company called Dare to Declare, and through a process of actually having a photo shoot, which is also part of weddings, big time with the photography, is I had that photo shoot, and in those photos I saw what was possible for my future. And that inspired me to start my company, Dare to Declare, along with the need that my employees were feeling. So for a time I was doing both. I was doing childcare and running vision board workshops on the weekends. And then, so I'm trying to think when we met, but one of the first years that I was in business, for Valentine's, I thought, oh, what if I did one for couples? And it went over really well. And I had couples and they made it like a date night. And instead of each creating their own individual board, they created one single board for what they wanted for their very best life together. And it was interesting because I had couples who were not married yet. And then I had a couple that was married for 2 years. And then I had a couple that had been married for 20 years. And the beautiful thing about the vision board experience was it applied to all of them. And it was just a beautiful conversation that all three couples had, depending on the stage where they were with their relationship. And what was interesting was the couple that were not married yet, who were engaged, they displayed their vision board at their wedding for their guests to see what they planned and envisioned for their life together. And so I did move full time into Dare to Declare. I let go of my career as a childcare director. And then Kristen noticed on my website about this couple's vision board workshop I was offering. And she said, tell me more about that. I'm curious. So we spoke about it. I shared my experiences. I had at that time, I already had a couple of Valentine's events that had happened. And she said, I do like these planning rooms with couples where they plan their wedding. Do you think something like that would work? And I said, let me think about that. That is really cool. And then she said, I work with bridesmaids and brides, and they do retreats together, for their bridal party, for their bachelorette. Do you think it would work for that? Yeah, it totally would. That would be super cool. And so, anyways, I'm jumping ahead maybe a little bit, but that's really where how you were attracted to my company, what I had to offer. And then we just started to invent and create together about what was possible with this vision board tool. So I haven't really described what the tool is about, but just sort of give you sort of an overall view of how you and I met.
I know. I love it so much. And I think it's such a fun process. And especially because I hate to say this, but what's next is, New Year's Eve in just a few hours, but then it's Valentine's Day. And what a fun treat to experience with your partner to come together and do these vision boards. And so I love that. I love that we have vow to vision, I believe is what you call it, correct?
Yes.
And that is where couples can come in, whether they're at my planning moon or whether they're in Toronto or whether they're in the UK, because we do have people watching all over the world. They can work with you virtually and you can help them to really bring a vision together for not just their wedding, but what's so important, like you said earlier, is what their life looks like together and how that kicks it off, really.
Absolutely. And the beauty of doing a vision board is that it can be done in person. Like I said, you have a beautiful spot in Florida where people can come to you and you can create that event. You've done retreats in Tennessee and just in different places like that. I do them in Ontario. I've done women's retreats. But since of COVID, I was really challenged, and you've been challenged as well. Like, how can I offer this business online? And what happened was it became this opportunity to become global. And so when I look at even the data from who are my clients, yes, predominantly Canadian and American, but I have a lot from the UK. So definitely a European market for vision boards. So that's what's so beautiful. Like you said, it can be done in person, but also online. And there's something really beautiful about doing it online in that it can be done over a few weeks. So you start the process, let's say we create a date night and it's on, a Thursday night or a Friday night, grab a glass of wine, grab a beer, whatever, and let's dig into this together. And then there's time before the next week we meet again, for the conversations to happen, for the material to really, the content to marinate, to land, to go, oh my goodness, that person's talking about that, or oh, I had a conversation with my colleague about this and I just learned something else, they're doing this too, or just having this beautiful time. So the time between the sessions also becomes part of the process and the resource.
So true. I just was speaking with a wedding client earlier that is in a long distance relationship, and they got engaged at Christmas. But I just had a thought when you were saying like a date night, like a lot of people are in long distance relationships. And so how fun would that be to have your partner, maybe your partner's in the UK and you're in Atlanta, and I'm using those scenarios because that's where my client's situation is. But how fun, they could still have a date night together by doing a vision board. I'm so excited. Like I didn't even think about that aspect of like a virtual date night.
Absolutely. And as the coach, and Kristen, you're now certified, in this, in that what we do is we guide the conversation. So we're providing provocations, exercises that are fun, that, I'm trying to think about one of the examples, or one of the questions I ask is, share something you deeply respect about your partner. Right? Like, how beautiful that would be to hear from your partner. Like, maybe that's something that maybe you are very open and you have those kind of deeper conversations, but maybe you don't. Or maybe it's like, it's just really great to hear it again, right? Share something that your partner does that makes you laugh. It's just fun. And then, you can share it with each other, but I would be listening, or you'd be listening as well, Kristen, to be able to hear that and just to relive that and just to raise that vibration and just to strengthen the love that you have for each other.
It's so true. And I think for me, I've done destination weddings for years. And so I think too, when clients are coming to me and trying to figure out where they want to go, how important this process could be to them, because some people do struggle on choosing a place, a common place that's good for everyone, because we're trying to think of obviously the bride and the groom, the parents, and then the guests. And so if you're envisioning, a vineyard, or you're envisioning a beach, I love how you said to me once in one of our very first sessions that you watch as to where something is placed on a board and the size of it being placed on a board, and you recognize how important that is to someone. And I always think of that. I think of that when like couples are trying to compromise, because let's face it, it's all about the compromise. Are they putting those pieces together the same, and how that comes together? And I think that's just a really a communication tool, right? So it leads to so much more.
Yeah, I love that. I was just on a call with a gentleman and we were talking about, he said, how is it possible? Like, he said, I think some of my visions are contradictory. And I said, well, tell me more. And he said, well, I don't want stairs in my home. I want a 1-floor home. He said, but I also want an office that overlooks a forest. He said, so that has to be on a second floor. And so what I challenged him to say was, does it have to be on a second floor? So let's just get rid of the idea of no stairs or, it has to be second floor or any of that. Let's get to the part that you're really wanting as the vision. Why do you want a forest to look at? Oh, yeah, I want it to be peaceful. I want to have the sense of nature. Well, what about, focusing on that bigger vision, which that's what we would do as well, is when I would talk to a couple, I would ask them to let go of some of the things that maybe they've just held on to as I have to, or I should, or it must be, or, the how. But let's focus on the bigger vision. How do you want that part of your wedding to feel?
Yeah.
And the way that we get there may be different than what you initially thought it was going to be. Are you open to letting that go? And it's really about the bigger vision, the dream, and the feeling that it's going to invoke. So maybe, you always have this vision of being on the ocean, but it's this feeling of tranquility, of, being private. Well, maybe there's another location that embodies those same things that we can dig into. What is it that it doesn't necessarily have to be on the ocean, but maybe it's by a beautiful pond in a secluded area, in a forested area, whatever. So yeah, so just to see, you get what I'm trying to say, is that it's just about creating that vision and digging in deeper.
Yeah, it's true. It's so much more than the pictures in a magazine, which I always still drives me crazy, even as an instructor now. And people say it's a collage. No, it's not. And I'll adjust my screen real quick. I have my vision board, my older one, above. I'm getting ready to start my new one, which I can see yours in the background too. We always have them not far from us, which is so important because we're manifesting what is on that board to come true, correct? So that's what we want our couples to know, is what they're putting out there is putting it out there to the universe and wanting it all to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so special when there's this double vibration, when it's two people, it's the couple. And the other piece is, typically a vision board is for your whole life. We don't put bumper pads on it to say it's only for the 1 year. It's really like, what's your dream for the next 10 years, and put it on. So this is a bit of a twist in that it is for the specific day. Mm-hmm. But we do talk about, in a regular vision board, like, what are the 7 areas of your life that you want to cover, like financial, professional, relationships, education. So we've taken a twist on it with the vow to vision, to think about what are the areas that you want to think about for your specific day, because we know this is for the particular event. Although, by having this beautiful vision for your wedding, isn't it beautiful that it isn't just then about the wedding, like you talked about earlier, is that it's for your life? And, I'm sure you've seen this, Kristen, where some people just plan for the day and then there's this big letdown after.
Oh, it's so true. It's no wonder people go right into what the next step is of babies or buying a house, because they need that constant something. It's so much to plan a wedding, usually on average for 1.5 years. And, given what the last year was like, so it's even longer sometimes. And so, yes, they need that something, that next step.
So by having the vision encompass the wedding day, so that you're having some of those, what could be contentious or difficult, challenging conversations if you're coming from 2 different viewpoints, or maybe you haven't even thought about it at all. And then all of a sudden you have to make a decision, and it's like an investment, and you're like, oh, I'm not prepared to do it. Whatever the reason is, by having that conversation well in advance, and then having it be on a vision board where you can see that this is the vision for our wedding. It's like planning for a trip, right? It's just, the joy is also in the planning. So that's not just about the someday, the wedding day, that's going to be the joyful day, but that the joy already begins in the planning.
So true. So true.
And that just feels contrary to what, I'm sure you hear some of these things, like it's just people roll their eyes, or, it's like they're like, oh, sighing about planning a wedding. But imagine if you could say, no, it's been a lot of fun. Like, I just loved planning my wedding. And it was such a love expression with my partner to be able to do this. And we were able to create this vision together.
It's so true. I mean, I've incorporated it, as you know, into the retreats, because that is my whole sole purpose, is to have people enjoy the journey, the entire journey. It's so much more than just the day, because at the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, it went by so fast. Right? And it did, because it's only a day. But imagine if you lived that day every day up to your planning, and then even afterwards. And having your board, you can still have it with you every day too, which I think is special. And you touched on people even sharing that at their wedding, which I think is so cool. And I'm highly encouraging that for people to understand how that vision all came about.
Yeah. So how cool would that be to have it, framed and have it on an easel, and for people to see, like, oh, the two of you planned this, and there it is. Like, it's actually manifested. This is, I can see it. I can see what the two of you had in your mind and for your life. So some of the areas that you and I talked about and that are in the workshop are location. So what is your vision for your location? And it's interesting because sometimes we get caught, like, I just want it to be loving, I just want it to be peaceful, but what does that actually tangibly look like? And then some people get caught up just in the details, and they forget about, oh, I actually want it to be peaceful and calm, loving, right? So there's this happy medium of recognizing how you want to feel together with one another, but also in a location. Then the other one is number of guests. Like, what's the great number that you want? And again, maybe that's dictated right now by circumstances, but it could be preference about a small wedding or a larger wedding. The venue. So it kind of goes hand in hand a bit with the location, but still different and unique in terms of what does that venue, and I keep saying, what does it feel like? Right. So when you walk in and you're spending time there, is it, do you want the fairy tale? Do you want more modern? Do you want to be open? Do you want to be intimate? Like, what does the feeling of the venue invoke? What are your colors? I mean, that's a big one, but colors, the feng shui and all of that, like they show us and tell us that the research shows that colors invoke feelings. So you want to be really intentional, that just because it's always been your favorite childhood color doesn't mean it's maybe the color that you want for your wedding.
Right.
So, and again, now you've got two people involved. So what does that look and feel like? The ceremony, there's another area that you're going to want to put that vision for. What does this ceremony feel like? And who's included in that? Is it family? Is it more formal? Is it, you're writing your own vows, like all of that. And then the reception location as well. So that's the party, the big party. What the vision is for that. So those are the 7 areas that, again, are very different from what the traditional vision board would be like, but nevertheless, it's the same kind of format where you would have all of that included on your board and having these robust, beautiful, loving conversations with one another.
Yeah, it's a Pinterest board that comes alive for us as planners, because as we all know, Pinterest is very much everything's beautiful, it seems, on Pinterest, right? And so we have a lot of people come to us and say, here's our Pinterest board and here's our budget. And they don't always match, because obviously Pinterest is so much a staged shoot, right? And so having this board and having these feelings added to these photos, I think, is so much more powerful, because we all can look at Pinterest and pin away and get lost in Pinterest. But when we're actually cutting, pasting, placing, and adding emotion to it, I think it jumps off the board, and it helps me as a planner to really understand, okay, here is what their true vision is with their emotion behind it. It's not just picking out staged and photo shoots and putting them together, because obviously you can have hundreds of them, but you're limited to your space on your vision board. So it's really going to be something that you're holding that space dear for.
I love that you said that. Yes. So Pinterest is ongoing, right? You just keep pinning to your heart's content. Whereas a vision board, there is only so much real estate.
Yeah.
So I've just listed 7 areas. So you're going to want to make some distinct choices on what is it that really embodies the feeling that I want in those 7 areas.
Yeah.
And you're right about the aesthetically pleasing. So sometimes people say to me, like you talked about things being crafty, or like, oh, I'm not crafty, I'm not artsy. In fact, actually, some of my toughest customers or clients have been artists because they really struggle with creating a vision board and not a piece of art. And I had a client this fall as well. We kept coming back because she just kept choosing pretty pictures. And when I asked her, dug into it, like, what's the vision behind it, or what was the decision for the choice? It was just because it was pretty. And so it's this vulnerability about opening yourself up to making it meaningful, and knowing that when it's meaningful to both of you and this choice for your wedding, it's going to be beautiful. I know Kristen promises that it will.
I do. And I do love it. I love when you say, what is the vision for the ceremony and what is the vision for the reception, they can actually be very different. We've had people that choose a church setting for their ceremony, and then they choose a garden for their reception or a hall for their reception. And obviously those can be two very different, distinct settings, which I think is where your compromise also comes together. I know personally, I had a very challenging wedding. One of my first weddings I did, that the groom wanted a winter wedding and the bride wanted a summer wedding. And that's things I obviously can't control versus Mother Nature, but you can make it happen. You just have to see how important it is to them. And it was very important to them, and it did happen. But that would have been a very interesting vision board had I known about vision boards then.
Yeah. So I'm going to just put you on the spot. So what do you think you might have included on there? Or what did you, now in hindsight, what did you do?
Well, I did. They were married actually in the fall. So not the summer or the winter, right in between. Nice. I had a snow tunnel built so that they had fake snow. They were married on a beach, or they were supposed to be married on a beach, but then Mother Nature took another twist at them. But we did still get married at the beach. It just wasn't on the beach. What else? We had Christmas decorations, which was part of the whole winter theme of the groom wanting it. They had a sandcastle cake. This was years ago. So this is all kind of things that now are like, they probably have it every day, but then they didn't. Yeah. So very much included and listened. And I think that's another really big part of this vision board process, is listening to each other, listen to what each other wanted. And then we pulled out the most important things that we possibly could to make it come together.
For sure. And, I'm thinking about my own wedding as well, in that some of the challenges were not my husband and I, or my fiance at the time. It was my extended family. Goodness knows, right? Like, so, so having those conversations, I'm just thinking about one of the exercises is really digging into how do you want to involve the family, right? And so that you can have that conversation together, and then you can set up the intention and, if necessary, boundaries, so that before it gets too close to the event or things get heightened in terms of stress levels and so forth, those conversations can be had, and that you're on the same page together. So I'm just trying to see here, but yeah, just talking about love languages, and then also about, communicate with both families, have the brave conversations, who and how will be involved. Yeah. So those are some of the things that are part of the workshop as well.
Which is so important, because families do play a big role, especially if they are financially contributing.
Yes.
A lot of times we have to differentiate between, what I tell people is that it's a gift. It's not their event. They're gifting you this event if they choose to pay, and that while they should have some say, I don't think that it's fair to have all the say. And that's a very hard conversation for people to have with their parents, which is where I come in as a mediator, is to help, further those conversations. And so that is a really big, important part, is how to communicate with your families. And it happens a lot with religious ceremonies. If someone decides they're not wanting to get married in a church and their parents are very strong about that, there's ways that you can have compromise. Again, it's all about compromise and communication and making sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, I love that. And as you were speaking, it was making me think about the board actually being the other part of the communication tool, almost like the mediator as well. Because once you have the board constructed, then when you go to get your flowers, or you can say, I'm thinking about my designer. I remember when I built my studio, I had a mood board. It wasn't a vision board, it was a mood board.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great. I took it with me when I wanted to choose my fabrics or whatever, because instead of me just trying to articulate what it was that I wanted, I could say, this is what I want.
Yep.
So, I would either, take a snapshot of it, have it on your phone so you have easy reference, or you can shrink it into an 8x10 or something like that, but that you can take it with you as you're going to talk to the various vendors.
Yeah. And even share it with the parents. If you're going through this intimate experience together as a couple, and then next step would be to go to parents if they are involved and saying, here is what our vision is. And, hopefully everyone respects that and moves forward with that process. So it's just such a great experience. And I don't know, I love it. So I feel like everyone would love it. What's not fun about, planning, and it's almost like you can look at it every day. And so you're not just waiting that year, you're able to look at those flowers every day, or look at that tent, or look at that venue, that beach, whatever it is. And you're invoking that feeling every day versus, waiting a year to actually walk down the aisle and feel it.
Yeah. And what I also want, when you're speaking, I was thinking about what generally happens is that we plan it but our mind is only as large as what our experiences are, what we know, what we've read, what we've seen. But generally what shows up is bigger and better than what we imagined.
So
and
true.
That's the magic. And, I just think that for the wedding couple as well, to anticipate that, yes, this is just a beginning, but actually what's going to manifest is going to be bigger and better.
Yeah. And carry through, for life. Like you said, it's like a blueprint, right? Like, so when you're sharing that vision board at your wedding, it's like the architect has handed you all the pieces and the parts of what is there. And then people look around going, oh, that's the cake. Oh, those are the flowers. Oh, that's the tent. It's really cool. I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much, Deb. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And I know anyone going through the Vow to Vision course with you will love it. I'm going to let you share your social media handles and how to reach out to you. And then, of course, we will post this with our blog post as well for people that are watching and can't write down right now. But how can people reach out to take the course with you?
Sure. So you can reach all of my social media platforms through my website. So it's very simple. You can see it there. It's Declare.com. And otherwise, you can also send me a personal email. It's my name, Debbi, Debbi, at DebbiSluys.com.
That's great. And so again, not just for couples, if you wanted to do a vision board experience with your bridal party, if you wanted to do one with parents, how fun would that be to get everyone on the same page? Maybe you could invite both sets of parents to all maybe have this experience together, or some type of coaching program together. It is such an important time, as you know. This is the start of bringing two families together, and it can be very stressful, and you never want to start off on the wrong foot. So I always tell people to really try to make that a peaceful experience, because it's the start, which is going to just carry through for the rest of your lives. So it's super important.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. So as you can tell, Chris and I have just been sort of even here just kind of spitballing, like you could do this, you could do that. So really, I think the best way to, if you've got an idea, we can probably figure it out because this tool is so versatile. So yes, feel free to reach out, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and see how I can support you. And the beauty of this is, like I said, you can be at different time zones, different parts of the world, and you can be connected together over this. I've worked with generations, like I've worked with grandmas and daughters and their granddaughters, and I've done it in person, online. It's just extraordinary. So yeah, I'd love to have a chat with you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this episode. As just as planned, we hope your wedding all goes, of course, just as planned. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Deb. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Happy New Year.